we're just going to tell some stories from the trenches about what we are hearing from our partners and just in the MSP industry as a whole. A lot of that will be to help you know that a lot of your frustrations in getting cybersecurity out to your clients, they're not unique. You are not alone. A lot of other people are going through the same type of thing, but we have a huge partner network to pull from of what has been successful and how they've been able to navigate those types of things. So for a few introductions here, we are from Defendify, and we make cybersecurity possible for all organizations. No security team, no problem, we got you. So I am Shanna Utgard. I am one of the success managers here, and I'm joined by my partner in anti-cybercrime.
All right, my name is Glen. Nice to meet you all. Excited to do this webinar today. Shanna is like my cybersecurity Yoda, so a lot of knowledge on her end of things, and I'll contribute as well today.
We're gonna jump right in here. We're gonna make this pretty simple. This is only a half-hour webinar. We know you're crazy busy right now, but we want to get some things out there and talk about a few different topics. So first thing that we're going to talk about here is MSPs and meeting their client demands. So what are you hearing your clients asking for? Maybe they don't even know exactly what they're asking for. So we want to be able to identify some of the things that we're hearing out in the trenches that should make your ears, perk right up and say, oh, this is something that is an opportunity for some cybersecurity services. So Glenn, what are you hearing your partners and their clients asking for with regard to cybersecurity?
I think the big one is clients coming to their MSPs asking for proof of what they're providing for cybersecurity. Maybe it's something that their cyber insurance policyholder is asking for. Maybe a vendor that they work with, they're now asking them, hey, what are you doing for cybersecurity? If we're going to do business with you, we need to make sure you have training in place and policies and plans in place. So I think kind of the hot topic lately has been assessments, plans, and policies, and kind of those foundational pieces.
I would agree. You've brought on quite a few partners just in the last few months. I'm kind of a little bit up to like here in all the partners that currently working with, but I got the same thing. It's very interesting to watch cybersecurity insurance. Obviously, the insurance market is all about risk, and it is very difficult as cyber threats change day to day, never mind this being kind of a new industry for a lot of insurance carriers. Some of them have even been like, I'm out, we're not having this line of business anymore. So watching them do the risk modeling before it went from, a rider on their general insurance policy or like an E&O policy to a full-blown cybersecurity insurance, its own type of policy, watching the denials that have come through, watching the different restrictions on when they will or will not pay out has been very interesting, but also talking to a lot of organizations who just had a policy written, and then all of a sudden when it came up for renewal, they were getting hit with those Excel spreadsheet assessment questionnaires. You'll hear it called all types of things like that. And basically the insurance companies are saying, we're not really sure how to risk model this. So tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing, and we'll hope for the best coming up with a premium for you. I don't know if you've heard from any of your partners, but one company I work with, their insurance premium quadrupled twice. So it went up 8 times as much year over year. So they had to do a lot of things in order to get that premium back down. So definitely cyber insurance is a driving factor. I see that probably in the MSP space as well, that, in order for you to have your cyber insurance policies, in the future, I see it being you need to prove and document that you're providing cybersecurity insurance or cybersecurity services for all of your clients to reduce their risk and therefore your risk, especially with the things we're hearing in the news. So you mentioned other third-party questionnaires. What do those look like?
It can vary. Some of them are pretty simplistic where, they just want proof that, hey, we have a training program in place for employees. It makes total sense. If you're doing business with someone and that person isn't up to speed on cybersecurity, it's putting you at risk as well. So I think, it's a combination of a lot of factors. Things are in the news now, so more and more organizations are becoming aware of the threats that are out there and the risks that are out there. And they understand that experiencing a breach could result in a lot of financial loss and downtime. So they're exploring every avenue possible. One of those being, assessing their vendors that they work with to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to. So, and of course, in a lot of cases, these vendors are using MSPs to handle their cybersecurity. So it kind of comes back on the MSP. And I think a lot of times it's more of a reactive approach on the MSP side of things, where they're like, oh shoot, we have to put together these plans and policies. So a lot of the partners that I'm talking with, they're coming to me like, all right, we need something, like we have some gaps, our clients are asking about them, and that's kind of where we step up to the plate and assist our MSPs and partners.
A lot of it is kind of like closing the barn doors after the horses have already escaped, but hey, at least the doors are getting closed somehow. Unfortunately,
Right.
I'd like to see it a little more proactive. Yeah, a lot of third party. So like, I'm an MSP and I work with a small marketing agency, but that small marketing agency is creating these marketing campaigns for a large enterprise organization. So I have a feeling there's probably a lot of companies across the world that are having third party and vendor risk conversations, especially I'd say probably, I don't know, maybe like the last 8 months or so roughly, but understanding that parties that you do business with and the people that you let access your systems and your data do pose a threat to you. The target breach is, the classic example of the third party risk situation where the little HVAC contractor was used to island hop, speaking of keeping our little military stories from the trenches theme going here, used to island hop into target and gain access to that network. So that's one of the things that we really encourage you to do, is to look at your customer base as a service provider. Obviously, there are specific industries that are hot topics right now as far as compliance, all the normal ones, your HIPAA compliance, GDPR's one that we're hearing a little bit more, state regulations, Department of Defense contractors. So I've seen a lot of chatter and webinars and everything else on CMMC. Even before that, I think that's putting the cart a little in front of the horse, because many of our DoD supply chain manufacturers, those companies, still haven't even uploaded their 800-171 assessment into the SPURS system. So, it's like worrying about what your lawn looks like when your house is on fire. CMMC is not quite your concern yet. That 800-171 assessment is. So there are certain industries that obviously are prime for cybersecurity services because they're under regulation. Those are naturally the companies that you're going to want to talk to first as far as the cybersecurity services, to be proactive, because they're going to be getting these cybersecurity services from someone. If you are their IT provider, but don't necessarily have advanced or additional cybersecurity measures, they're going to go out to specific cybersecurity companies, or you're going to have shadow IT situations where they've installed some other type of technology or brought in another service provider that's not you, and getting that service from somewhere. But also, outside of those industries that are compliance driven and have those requirements, look at your clients and who their clients are. Because if they are working in the larger organization space, or they're working with very heavily regulated clients, those are other targets that you want to be proactive in that conversation, so that you can meet those demands and help them put those things in place before the horses escape the barn. If they're working with the enterprises, they are going to be, if they haven't already, they are going to be getting the cybersecurity questionnaires and the cybersecurity assessments. They're going to be looking at you to help them go through that ugly 14-tabbed spreadsheet and provide all of those answers. So for those, which is great for the companies who are proactively having that conversation about, hey, how do I put some additional cybersecurity measures in place, and how do I do it yesterday, and meeting those client demands, which fortunately we can provision in only a few minutes and have you. How many times have we had people coming in and saying, I need an incident response plan, or I need a acceptable use technology and data use policy, and I need it by 5 o'clock this afternoon. I could think of a couple dozen times that's happened. But for those people who are not banging down your door, let's talk about how to start that conversation with clients. So I know this is something that I hear a lot from my partners, but for the companies that are not necessarily asking you about the cybersecurity services, like how do you have the talk with them? And no, we're not talking about that talk. We're talking about the cybersecurity talk.
Okay.
Yes, no,
All right.
no. So how do you encourage your partners to start? What are some of the frustrations or concerns they have about starting the talk?
I think there's always been this apprehension that, they feel like the client's going to push back. I think the client's going to feel like they're just trying to get more money out of me, or I thought you were taking care of everything already. Why do I have to pay more money? And I think that conversation can be difficult if you're not prepared for it. So I think one of the things I do is really try and coach my partners on how to start that conversation. And I think one of the nice things, with Defendify is we're able to kind of take them on that journey. And it all starts with the cybersecurity health checkup, which is, an assessment that's pretty comprehensive. And what I'll encourage my partners to do is like work this into like your normal business. Be assessing your clients all the time. And the way you approach it is, explaining to them, yeah, we do these assessments every 6 months because the cybersecurity climate's constantly changing. The risks that were there 6 months ago, there's now hundreds and hundreds of, or probably thousands of more risks out there now 6 months later. So we have to be doing this assessment all the time. It's going to produce a letter grade. It's going to show where their gaps are and offer recommendations. And I think it's kind of just a natural way to have that conversation with them. Hey, this is an assessment that we do to assess your risks. Those risks are always changing. So it's important we do this when we have our quarterly meetings or once a year. And the client's going to have that expectation that you're going to be identifying gaps and you're going to be offering solutions to fill those gaps.
To me, it's kind of like the difference between somebody being like, Glenn, you need to be healthier. Okay, probably, sure, whatever, versus actually taking them through, this, we call it the cybersecurity health checkup for a reason. If you go into your doctor and your doctor says, you need to be healthier, you're probably not going to give it a lot of weight. If your doctor takes you through a full blood panel and complete lab work and comes back with like your, actual quantifiable numbers of what that means to not be healthy, then you've got kind of that third party authoritative. As a service provider, you're taking their answers and what they're currently doing, running it through a third-party tool that's going to give them an assessment grade. It's going to show them strengths and weaknesses. It's not just you as their technology provider, in their mind, throwing out more acronyms that are going to cost them more money. That's in a lot of situations, that's what we hear from the partners, is that they feel like every time they're having their quarterly conversations, they're just pitching another solution, trying to, get blood from a rock and get that client to spend some more money on technology solutions that they've been telling them that they need for a very long time over and over again. So this is kind of that third party. You've been telling them for 3 years now that they need a password management solution and multi-factor authentication. This is another tool that's going to show them that. So some of the ways that we encourage our partners to manage the cybersecurity conversation is to head off some of those objections before they become objections. So in taking them through that, I love the thing about using it in your quarterly check-ins. Hopefully you're doing quarterly check-ins with your clients, if not more frequently. But talk to them about the types of services that you're currently providing them. So there is a difference between managed IT services, which is taking care of the hardware and the software and the technology solutions, making sure that they're running efficiently and that they're able to conduct their day-to-day operations and the technology that fuels that. There's a big difference between managed IT services and security. They are not the same thing. If you look at any large enterprise organization, they have different whole sections of the company or divisions for security and for day-to-day IT, because they are separate functions. As a managed service provider, they're not going to go out and your clients aren't going to go find different providers or have different departments for that. So we've kind of mashed that into like one role. but you definitely should be charging more for security services, or at least baking it into your existing managed service contracts, maybe even giving them a little price increase, because if you haven't increased your prices over the last year and a half and you've been doing that much more work, because we talk to you every day, we know how much work you've been doing through this pandemic. So outline for them the types of services that you're currently providing. So you might do antivirus and firewalls, some network management, do their backups, and then talk to them about the difference between security and day-to-day IT services. Start off with that risk assessment. So you're going to head off a few objections with this right away. You're going to head off, well, don't you already do this for me? You know, these are the services that I currently provide for you. Educate about the cybersecurity landscape. They've probably been receiving more phishing emails over the last year or so, or more. Use some actual examples if you have closed tickets that, you know, they had a phishing email or anything relevant that you can bring up in that conversation. Another thing that they say all the time is that they don't think that they're a target, or they don't have any information that the attacker would want. So as part of that cybersecurity health checkup, you know, go through kind of a data classification exercise with them. A great question I like to ask is, you know, what type of information do you possess that would be catastrophic if it got into the wrong hands? That could be protected health information, being that health records go for $1,000 a piece on the dark web. So it could be intellectual property. Maybe they are a law firm and some of the details and secrets of their clients are the type of information that they need to protect. Maybe they have America's nuclear secrets and they make a little component of one of our weapons and they're part of that Department of Defense supply chain. It could be schematics, it could be, you know, diagrams. Like, what information would they not want to have in the hands of the bad guys? It makes them think about things other than just health records and credit card numbers. And then if they say that they're not a target, we have a great stolen password scan teaser. So that's been really successful with our partners, where you can show them that even though they don't think that they're a target, their information is already out there and being circulated on the dark web. We don't spill all the jelly beans in the lobby. We just give kind of a summary of how many records they have for that person's individual email address, and then how many for the entire company domain, and also the most recent exposure. So if their most recent exposure was 2 weeks ago, that's really going to pique their curiosity of the information that's out there and show them that they are also a target. Have you had a lot of success with your partners using that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the nice things with the Essentials package, as well as the stolen password scan teaser. Just creates that awareness, like, okay, these are the risks that are there. At least opens up that conversation. I was talking to a partner today, actually, and he was saying, you know, now is the perfect time to have these conversations with people. It's in the news, it's in the headlines. He's like, I have customers from other MSPs coming to me to see what I can provide them, because they want to make sure they're protected adequately. So, you know, over the years, there are more and more MSPs popping up. It used to be just a handful, and now there's tons of options. And, you know, if you're not doing these things, especially with the threats that are out there, and you know, people becoming more aware, customers might be looking to other MSPs that can provide what they're looking for whatever they need it for, you know, whether it be vendor assessments or cyber insurance. But definitely, you know, have that conversation. He said, I want to strike while the iron's hot. So
absolutely. Yep. And we talk to companies too that will say, like, well, I've never had anything bad happen before. I mean, I lock my door every single time that I leave my house. I've got a security camera system outside. I don't do it because I expect that I'm going to get robbed or that I've had my house broken into before. I take as many necessary steps as I can to reduce the risk of my house being robbed. You know, the cyber criminals are just like common thieves. Like, if you leave your car parked in a big parking lot and you leave the doors unlocked and the windows wide open, then you are obviously going to be more of a target than somebody who has, you know, everything completely locked up nice and tight to the best that they can. Can somebody come by and still smash your window out and grab something from the back of your car? Of course they can. But if they could find a car that's unlocked instead, it's going to save them some cuts and a mess and all the trouble of doing that. So, you know, you don't want to be that low-hanging fruit. Your clients, yourselves, taking those precautions, just because I haven't had my house broken into doesn't mean that it's not still a possibility and I can't do some things to reduce that risk. But also, I have my insurance policy for if something does happen and I do have a break-in, then, as crappy as that would be, at least, I'm going to be able to get some of that financial loss back. So not a target. I don't have any information that the bad guys would want. You can show them, what type of information they're trying to protect that somebody might be after. You can have them look at their clients that they do business with, that target island hopping thing. Like, how could you be used, as a jumping off point to infiltrate some of your people that you work with, your customers, your clients? Too expensive. We hear that a lot. I like to say that cybersecurity is going to cost you one way or another. It's whether or not you want that to be like one big all, at once type cost that is probably going to be a lot higher when there's some type of security incident that occurs. Or you can break it down into small, manageable, bite-sized monthly costs to reduce the risk of something like that happen. But either way, clients are going to have to pay for cybersecurity. It's either, monthly and manageable, every single month, predictable, or at probably the worst time that it possibly could be, and it all at once. Never had anything bad happen before, so you can kind of head that off with that we're going to do as many things as we can to reduce the risk. But, obviously something still can happen, and still lock my doors. Don't you already do this for me? Go through the things that you provide and then take them through that cybersecurity health checkup and risk assessment. It'll show them where they stand. It'll show them where they have holes. And then you can go from there and formulate a plan to bring them to an acceptable risk level for a reasonable investment. And start with education. We're happy to host awareness webinars, take your clients through the types of risks that they face, some small and easy things that they can do to protect themselves, and some of the other services that they should consider layering in. And speaking of layering, let's kind of talk about the stack here. So some of the issues that you're hearing from your partners, Glen, what are they talking about with their stack?
I think the big ones are a lot of the foundational pieces. Plans and policies are one of probably the hot buttons right now for a lot of my partners. I think it's the approach before has been we do it if they request it, but it's not something we offer as a part of our stack for our clients. It's kind of per DM. But I think that's a big one, and it's it's not a flashy piece of technology where they can run scans or anything like that. So I think that's probably why they don't have anything in place. It's not as fun to play with, but probably one of the most important pieces you can have. Tech and data use policy is going to significantly reduce the risk at the employee level by setting that expectation of how they're supposed to use their technology. And as we were just talking about, you can put all these things in place, and you could still experience a breach. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And by having an incident response plan in place, it's going to reduce the risk for your client, but also for you as well, because when something does happen, you're going to be prepared. You're going to know exactly what to do. You're not going to be running around trying to figure out who you're supposed to call or what the next steps are. You have something in place that's going to give you a kind of a step-by-step on how to solve that problem and keep it from happening in the future.
Prior to Defendify, how are your partners doing these policies and plans and incident response and acceptable use or technology and data use policies?
Most of them weren't, to be honest. And the ones that were, they maybe found some template on like with a Google search or something like that and put something together. I don't know. I haven't seen any of them, so I don't know how it compares, but you can only guess. Not to mention it's probably not the most efficient way to do that. You have all these documents kind of hanging out from these templates that you've taken from Google, whereas within Defendify, you have an easy way to do it. It generates it for you. You have a level of customization if you need to add anything to it. And that resides right within that dashboard for each of your clients. So it's, exactly where to pull it. Your client comes to you, hey, I need to provide a tech and data use policy and incident response plan to my cyber insurance holder. And you can send it right, or, you can have them log in, pull it right from the platform.
Absolutely. I hear from a lot of partners that if they are providing those types of service, it's a manual process, tinkering with templates. The other pain point that I hear a lot is vendor sprawl. I mean, just having separate providers for every single service. You've got your EDR, MDR solution, you've got your phishing simulation provider, you've got a risk assessment. It's just we have 13 tools in Defendify, so some of them you could probably get from combined consolidated vendor, but you're looking at handfuls of different vendors for this, and everything that comes along with that a lot of people don't immediately think of. Like, you have 13 different success managers like us that they have to deal with. You have 13 different invoices coming into your billing department. You have 13 different portals that you're logging into and managing all of the data from there. It's a lot of work, and having all of those in different separate systems. I know a lot of people that we talk to, they'll say, hey, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, which I also get from that standpoint as well. But having a lot of these tools in an automated fashion so that you're not tinkering with templates and sending out phishing emails and vulnerability scanners that crash all the time, being able to have all of those in one place in a neat little portal that you either can or don't have to let the clients be able to log into, definitely a benefit in building out your stack. And another thing to always think about is that there is no one size fits all approach for cybersecurity. A lot of our partners want to have some kind of standardization, because that's one of the big pushes, like get away from the 3-tiered packages, just go with one standard offer so that your support team doesn't have to be like, do I bill for this? Is this included in their services? Like, what level are they at? Like, just that standard offer, this is what we provide, the end for their managed service contracts. But it doesn't exactly work for security. You should have a standardization of a lot of your security offerings. So in the Defendify portal, our recommendation is the base package and the employee awareness module for the training and the email address based side of things. That should be your standard offering. Every client gets it. It's not optional. You don't let them tell you no. If anything, you help them come up with a plan of when they can incorporate this into their budget, and be able to plan for that, even if you have to do kind of a tiered rollout as far as the pricing side of things, or for some customers, if you're just turning it on for them. So that standard offer of the base and the employee awareness package, so you've got your policies, you've got your training, you've got some scanning, you've got, all of those cybersecurity basics. And then from there, depending on the client needs, you can make a few different little tweaks. So you might have a client that needs an annual penetration test, or maybe they have a web app that you need tested. You could layer in internal network vulnerability scanning if they need to stay up to date and keep all of their devices patched, to be aware of all the vulnerabilities on the devices on the inside of their network. And then some clients might need some more advanced cybersecurity services. So we have full breach detection and response, which is having your cyber SWAT team that is 24/7 monitoring full telemetry across all of your systems, and not only identifying any suspicious or anomalous activities, but also responding to and containing, because you don't want to burden your team on that. You just want to be able to provide that services, protect your client, but also not just completely swamp your help desk. So not a one size fits all approach, but still some standardization. You're basing the employee training, and then from there, internal scanning, penetration testing, or full out breach detection and response. It's kind of that happy medium of standardization, but not in that straight one size fits all approach. And then I got one more thing to talk about before we end this thing. Glen, what are you hearing from your partners about putting their own oxygen mask on first? Are they more concerned about their own security? Is it about the same? Like, what's that been like lately?
I think in the past, it wasn't something that came up a lot or something that they thought about, but I've noticed with a lot, and maybe it's because of the news headlines and, the growing risks out there, but I'm definitely getting a lot more that are understanding the value of utilizing this first on themselves. And it only makes sense. I think, one of the questions I would ask if I'm one of, an MSP's client is, well, do you use this on yourself? And if you say no, then they're going to be like, well, then why should I? So I think it's important that you protect yourself first. I mean, not just so that you're credible to your clients. I think that's a big part of it, but also, you're doing things to protect yourself, which in turn protects your clients.
Absolutely. I've seen, I think like 3 or 4 now, requests from our partners to have penetration testing done on their network because they just want to make sure, part of it's a little bit of that CYA type approach. They want to have, an attestation that as of this date and time, we had a verified external third party, because obviously the CFO can't audit their own books, but a third party test our network security, but also like just back to the basics. I've talked to a lot of prospective partners that don't even have their own security fundamentals. They're not even using multi-factor authentication. They, don't have user training. They just think that because their employees work in technology that they won't fall for a phishing email, which I've fallen for a phishing scam, so that doesn't mean anything. Let me take that back. I've fallen for a phishing simulation. Big difference. But, and I work in this day in and day out. So, making sure that you are training your own team, that you have good policies in place, that you have your own incident response plan. I mean, if you had an attacker in your network at 2:00 in the morning on Sunday, would you know about it? Could you identify it? Could you contain it? Do you feel like you have the skill set necessary to do that? So make sure that you're putting your own oxygen mask on first. So we're out of time here because we made this a short one. Why did we do that? Whose idea was that? I talk too much.
Yeah. No comment. What?
All right. So if you want to tell any of your stories from the trenches, you can either, we'll keep this going. If you want to hang, you can hang. If not, you're welcome to bounce. But if you want to tell your own stories from the trenches, you can raise your hand. You can ask to talk. You can put it in the chat or the QA, but also we're just going to put up a little thank you, some Defendify information here. We've had a couple people who have asked about partner pricing, costs, things like that, how everything is priced and packaged. So we encourage you to, if you go to defendify.io/partners, you can take a look and view a little demo of our all-in-one cybersecurity platform, but also there is some information where you can request a live demo. You can get in contact with myself or Glen and learn a little bit more about the Defendify Partner Program, but make sure you have your own oxygen mask on, be proactive in identifying client opportunities, have these tools in your tool belt for if your partners or your clients do come ask you for some additional cybersecurity measures. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
Bye, everyone.